We got. You can't waste that gold. What we're just talking about, Merlin. Welcome to Over 50, starting over, folks. We kind of got a special episode for you here. I'm Barry Edwards,
and I'm Merle Garrison.
And Merle and I just start jawing right off the bat before I even hit record. And we're just talking about, we both have had some flaky client experiences this week. And Merle started spinning some gold. I'm like, we got to record this. What did you just say?
I was just saying that, ever since we had the whole COVID crisis, we seem to have gone into this whole flaky tailspin where people don't answer the phone. They don't show up for meetings, or they show up 20 minutes late or whatever. Yeah. We've gotten so lazy that, that's the bad news. But the good news is this. I tell Brandon and Hallie, my kids, this all the time, that, hey, if you just show up at the time you say you're going to show up and do exactly what you say you're going to do, you're going to stand head and shoulders above everybody else, above your competition.
So much easier now. Yeah, really that's the point. No, that's a very good point. COVID has created so many excuses for everybody, and the inflation as well. Like, people are using that inflation as an excuse to just jack up their prices beyond anything reasonable. And I was talking, I think, to you about, there's East 55th Street Marina down here that I used to love so much. Well, they did the same thing. They started that last year, and then I went there just a couple of weeks ago this year, and it's like they have a giant pretzel. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're really good. It's just big giant piece of dough. I mean, giant pretzel.
I love that.
Yeah, dip it in the mustard and stuff.
Mustard, yeah.
$16. It's a big piece of dough. And if I recall, a couple of years ago, it was $8. I thought it was expensive then for a big piece of dough. It's double.
$16.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah. Hamburger, $18. You can't justify that.
I could have had, like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dinners back in college for $16.
Back in college, it was a little while ago.
I was on that Wendy's super value meal for $3. You were dialed in, man. A burger, fries, and a drink. Yeah. Too bad that'll kill you today. But when we were, we couldn't be killed back then. Nothing could kill us.
Our metabolism would just eat that and spit out anything you didn't want.
Right, exactly. You'd grow stronger from it.
For sure. So the reason we're having a special episode today, which will probably come out tomorrow, Saturday. This is our Friday happy hour episode. I listened to a podcast, Jordan Peterson's latest podcast, just a few days ago. I think it was July 3rd. Because this movie we're going to talk about came out July 4th. And it's called Sound of Freedom. And Jordan Peterson had, let me share the screen here. Jordan Peterson had a couple of incredible guests on, and they are the star of
theaters across.
Star of Sound of Freedom, Jim Caviezel, and the guy that the movie is actually based on, Tim Ballard. He also is on this interview, and it blew my mind. Wow. The interview blew my mind. We do have the trailer here. So Merle just went and saw the movie last night, and we compared notes. And tell me your summary of it, Merle. Your thoughts, your quick review.
Oh, mind-blowing, Barry. This thing, everybody's got to go and see this movie. This is a must-see. It's a game changer. It's really, this movie outlines the severity of this phenomenon that's going on right now through a story that's true. And the story is riveting. The actors in the movie, Caviezel is excellent, but these children amazing. That are in the movie are over the top actors, and this thing is mind-blowing. It's really, when we take a look at what's happening, it's sex slavery, and it's minors that are involved in sex slavery. This is the most heinous thing you can imagine, but it is gangbusters big right now, and everybody needs to understand that this is slavery that's happening, a worldwide slave ring. And this movie can be equal to Harriet Beecher Stowe's book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, that gave so many people a revelation of this heinous thing that was happening with slavery here in America, that people then became willing to fight to end it. This is the same kind of thing. The heroes in the movie are these children. And I really believe that if you go see the movie, first, you'll be educated on what's going on. And secondly, you're not going to be able to forget this. And you're going to be willing to jump into this fight and help to protect the most vulnerable and innocent of all, our children.
That's a fact. Some facts that came out in the podcast that I listened to, it was mind-blowing in all the worst ways, but it was done very well. Jim Caviezel said it was the best interview he's ever had, because Jordan just is able to, he's very, very curious about it. He's also able to put the psychological aspect to it. But let's just say, I want to share a couple of things. 2 million, this is what they shared with me. 2 million children are trafficked every year. Wrap your head around that one. 2 million. You can't. You absolutely cannot. Millions of people. This is, oh God, this is horrible. I'm going to say this one quick. Millions of people get off by watching children get raped until they break. That one right there, I had a hard time continuing with it, but I think it's important that we get this out. So these children are kidnapped, in some cases, young girls are captured, raped, impregnated, and then their babies are taken from them. And babies are used for their organs, body parts, satanic rituals. Their blood is drank. Their genitalia is put up in archways to symbolize something. It's like satanic rituals. I think I said that. The kids themselves are sold into sex slavery over and over again, like products, and also even work slavery, and again used for organ harvesting. This is horrific, and it runs way deeper than any of us think. And at one point, it was mentioned that you have to understand as well, our open border is an epicenter of this. The U.S. is allowing this. They're in fact encouraging it because this is big business for the cartels and like-minded people. Capturing the children, 65,000 children went through the border last year.
85,000 are unaccounted for right now. That's what Mayorkas came out with that in April, that we have 85,000 minors that are here in this United States that came through the border, and they're unaccounted for. We don't know where they are.
That's
85,000.
It's
and more every day. Every day.
So I want to give you a quick synopsis of the movie. It's kind of like we need to back up and lay some foundation here. So I copy and pasted this from the description. The film is based on the true story of Tim Ballard, a former U.S. Government agent that quits his job to rescue children from global sex traffickers. Ballard, played by Caviezel, a federal agent, finds himself losing hope in the dark field of children crime work. However, Ballard quickly uncovers his life mission when he's able to free a 7-year-old boy that was kidnapped. When the young boy asks Ballard to find his sister, who is also kidnapped, Ballard decides to devote his life to rescuing children from sex slavery. So it's a true story all the way around, but I want to tell you guys, go see it because of the way it's laid out. Merle can back all of this up. Caviezel said when he read the script, and a lot of other Hollywood stars wouldn't go near it because of the subject matter. And Caviezel said when he read it, it reminded him a lot of Taken. And he loves that movie. You know the movie I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What stars Liam Neeson.
And
Neeson. And so Caviezel said it was a really, really well done. And Jordan Peterson had already seen it and definitely backed that up. So it's laid out as a story. So it's very relatable. You can relate to these characters. These are real characters in here. And probably the most moving aspect to all of this was when Ballard relayed how he was on these missions in Colombia, and he was getting pulled out by the government. He was just about to bust up these big child sex slavery rings, and the government, for whatever reason I don't recall, was saying, "Hey, you got to come home. We're shutting this down. We're out of here." And he was, like you just said, Merle, he just rescued this young boy, and he's now going after the girl and
The
trying
sister,
to bust.
yes.
Yeah, they laid out all of this work so that they could set this sting up and capture these people and put an end to at least a piece of this. And he's getting pulled. And so he calls his wife and discusses this with her. And he says, should I just quit my job so I could go do this on my own, like as a vigilante? And Ballard said, he was really more than half hoping. She said, "No way, you got a family here. You got to come back." She didn't. She said, "Yeah, quit your job. Go get her." Right.
This was a great part of the movie.
Oh my God.
This was, as you said, Barry, the acting puts you in the movie.
Yeah.
Jim Caviezel, you feel what he's feeling as you're going through this movie. Yeah. It's very, very much a movie that helps you to capture the mood and the essence. And at this point in the movie, he's in Colombia. He's looking for this little girl. His heart is all in it. He works for Homeland Security. Homeland Security doesn't go to other countries to hunt for children. That's not what their job is. That's why just the allowance to go down to Colombia and look for this little girl was a big step for Homeland Security. So kudos to them for that. Right. But he had run out of the funding that they had given them, so it was time for him to come back. But you felt his feeling, like, how can he go back home now after his whole heart is into this and face that father that lost his kid? Because he's already brought the other kid to his father. The father says, how can you imagine your children and one of the beds is empty? Can you ever see yourself relaxing and being at peace?
Of course not.
No.
Oh God, no.
And so this is where he is. He can see himself and who his own children are. And could he leave his own child behind?
He had 6 kids.
The place where this girl was deep inside Colombia in a terrible, even the Colombians won't go there.
Yeah.
So this is the whole situation. The fact that he went in there, that's the thing that makes heroes, really. And
total hero.
But here's the thing. His wife, the support that his wife gave him, now I've been through a couple things myself, but nothing like that. But I've been through some things where I had to make decisions. And this woman completely reminded me of Anne Marie. I just burst out into tears when she spoke to him the way that she spoke to him, because I heard Anne Marie's voice. She would have done the same. I would have done the same, and she would have done the same. I know it.
That's really saying something, especially when you got a family to support. And she said, "We'll figure it out. We'll solve everything that we can."
And what you didn't mention was he was only 90 days away from retirement and his pension. So he gave up his pension in order to go after this girl,
which his accountant estimated that would have totaled approximately $12 million. Think about that.
Look, here's the thing, is that we know that money cannot bring you peace of mind.
Right.
In fact, it can actually do the opposite. And everybody is looking for that one thing, whether they know it or not, and that is peace of mind. And this man knew that if he went home, it didn't matter how much money was available, he would never have that peace of mind.
Right.
And it's very interesting. Here's something else that was interesting about the movie, is that Tim Ballard, being a really an investigator in this had to be sort of undercover, and he had to act like he was one of these pedophiles and a trafficker. And that, can you imagine having to deal with these people and to entrap them into this whole pedophilia ring? I mean, not entrap, they were going to do it anyhow, but to act like you're one of them had to have been psychologically, I can't imagine the challenge of putting yourself in that mode and then dealing with these people who are extremely dangerous, and trying to pull that off. This man was fearless in everything he did to free these kids.
You know, when the government approached him, was it the CIA? Oh, Homeland Security. When they approached him for this particular mission, they said, and he was much younger at that time, he said the reason that they were asking him to join this force in this child sex trade ring is because of his faith. They said that will help save your soul. Otherwise, we would fear that other people would be completely broken by this, which I totally understand. So he talks about watching thousands of hours of this children's porn, part of his job. And many times he said he fell on the floor dry heaving. But that's when he said that millions of people get off on watching children get raped until they literally break. And I think that's the sickest damn thing I've ever heard. But the proliferation of this throughout the world is really the reason that we wanted to do a special episode on this, because awareness is the first step in curing a problem. If you don't know of it, you can't do anything about it. And I really hope that the word gets out. It's the kind of thing, this is like the most horrific thing you could ever talk about. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to think about it. You know, we don't want to watch a movie about it, but going to back up and say, once again, the movie is an action thriller. It doesn't push this in your face. I'm just telling you this, that if you want to get some real facts out of this, please watch or listen to Jordan Peterson's podcast titled The Fight Against Worldwide Child Slavery and the Sex Trade with Jim Caviezel and Tim Ballard. It's episode 372. It's something else. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me give you a couple of facts, and also you mentioned his Christian faith. There's a pretty important part of the movie, so I want to touch on first the facts. At the end of the movie, they flash up some statistics, and one of them is that the child sex slavery industry draws $150 billion a year. Now let's just think about that. And think about how much Apple does per year. Nothing compared to that. I mean, it's just mind-blowing to think about. Now, I was thinking that where these kids were being kidnapped from, for the most part, would be the United States, and that's not true. Although we are having, as Barry brought up, about 2 million taken. These I
think that's worldwide.
Worldwide, but the biggest customer of these children, purchasing these children, is the United States. That's sick. That was an arrow in my heart when I heard that. Next is that at this point in history, there are more people in slavery than at any other time in human history. That's another mind blower right there. And here's something else that you brought up, Barry, and something I didn't understand until I watched the movie, is that these kids can be sold over and over again, and they're prostituted out like a pimp and a prostitute. So unlike cocaine, you can only sell that one time. Right. And cartels are doing that, but they have found that this is their answer to their money, and that is that they can take a kid and sell them 10, 15 times a day, every day, until that kid perishes. And this is happening, and we're seeing this all over the world right now. And finally, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not just that. It's not just that it's so much bigger than we know or realize. It's the fact that there's a fraction of people out there today in America that are publicly trying to normalize this. They're trying to call, let's not say pedophile anymore. No, they're MAPS. They are what is for attracted?
It is minor attracted person.
Minor attracted persons. That is the sickest thing I ever heard. They're pedophiles. And if you have any inclination towards prepubescent children, get some serious help right away. I mean, seriously, you are sick. That's an illness.
Well, and there is an aspect here of pure evil. And I guess an aspect, it is pure evil. And let's just talk about, from a Christian faith, the father of evil is Satan. From a biblical standpoint, and we talked about this individual's Christian faith, we have seen where Satanism has always had as one of its main features the goal of devouring children, from Baal worship to Isis to Diana. These are idols that were worshipped in the Bible that always required two things. One was temple prostitutes, and number two was child sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And so this has been something that Satan has been on ever since the beginning of time. He wants to devour our children. And Satan has been working through governments to be able to do that. So it seems very interesting how our government seems to be involved in this. I'm not saying that they're directly involved, but when you look at the border, you have to imagine that, hey, they know that this is going on, and we've got 85,000 unaccounted for minors here in the United States, or at least they might be in the United States. Right. But I wanted to bring up a scene in the movie where the character played by Jim Caviezel tricks this trafficker into trusting him so that they can bust him. And so what he does is he pretends to be a pedophile, and he wants to purchase one of these little kids. Right. And when the person shows up and he shows them here's the kid, and you can be with this kid this weekend, he says this out of his mouth: "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea." And the guy goes, "What does that mean?" And he says, "It means you're busted for child trafficking." And the police storm the place and they arrest the guy. But that's a quote directly from Jesus Christ in the Bible. I think it's funny that the guy didn't know what it meant. And therein lies the whole battle that's happening here. Mm-hmm. This is a battle. We're in the midst of a battle between good and evil. And this is one of the devil's favorite things, is to attack our children. Mm-hmm. Here's what I love about this movie, Barry, is that it brings to light the darkness that's happening that so many people are unaware of right now. I know people that I've spoken to recently about this problem and how big it is, and they just had no idea.
We didn't either. Not to this extent.
No,
2 million children missing every year.
And I think it could even be much worse than that. But this movie, as we've seen, this is 4th of July weekend. This movie debuted on 4th of July. Most 4th of July movies debut on that Friday before, debuted on the Friday before. So when you compare movies to each other, Raiders of the Lost Ark came out on Friday and had been shown all weekend. This movie came out on Tuesday, 4th of July. It's done over $20 million already and counting. It hasn't even been a week yet. It is the number. It's hard to tell because these are different studios and they're not being counted the same way all the other studios are. But this is either the number 1 or number 2 movie that's out there right now. The Raiders of the Lost Ark is a big one too that's happening, but it's right up there. Here's something, Barry, that they might have talked about. I hope they did on the Jordan Peterson episode, which is that this movie was made 5 years ago.
Oh, and yeah. Caviezel talked about that.
Disney had the rights to the movie and sat on it and did not let it out.
Not surprised.
And so what they had to do is, these people, they knew how important it was, but they were kind of being held captive and couldn't get the message out. And God knows this message needed to be put out at least 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Angel Studios picked it up out of Texas, and it was crowdsourced. And that's the really cool thing here, is that the financing for this came directly from the people, not investors and Hollywood producers. But here's something really interesting to take a look at, is how the movie starts out with these children of this father, and the little girl is very talented, a very talented singer, and somebody a woman notices her, and she comes to this little girl's house dressed like a business professional. She says she's a talent scout, and that this little girl has exactly what it takes to be a big, big star. And all we got to do is bring her down to the audition that's happening tomorrow at this time. Just then the brother comes walking in, and she says, he's got the perfect look too. God. And so they coerce them into this audition. And then when the father goes to go into the audition, the woman says, oh, no parents are allowed in the audition. That's our policy. But come back at exactly 7:00 sharp, and we'll be ready for you. Well, of course, he comes back at 7 and no one's there. Yeah. But this implicates Hollywood. And it makes you wonder, is this why they didn't want to put this out there? Is this, I mean, when you start to take a look at the implications of who is involved in this, it's not the scoundrel homeless guy. I'm sure they're part of it, but they're not the real threat. The real threat is coming from these elites, the Jeffrey Epstein and his entourage of very powerful people all around the world. Interestingly, in the movie, they set up this island to trap these people, and the island looks a whole lot like Jeffrey Epstein's island.
Wow. Let's play a little bit of that where Jim, at the end of this trailer, and you guys got to check it out, Sound of Freedom official trailer on YouTube. But let's play a little bit of that personal interview with Jim Caviezel at the end. And I watched it one time. I don't remember all what he said, but it was some powerful stuff. Let me go ahead and share this. And then we'll just go on to some lighter things, which would be kind of nice.
It's going to be hard to transition.
It will. I know. All right. So there we are, July 4th. Okay.
Freedom is one of those films that can legitimately change this world. So we want to ignite a fire in audiences and open their eyes to the dark reality of millions of children that need our help. Let's make this film a historic event and the start, the end of child trafficking. Theaters across this country are already selling out. Pre-order your tickets today, and you can send the message that God's children are no longer for sale.
Wow, huh?
Jim Caviezel is very, very good in this movie. The compassion in his eyes that you saw right there is what he carries throughout that whole movie.
He said,
go ahead.
He said in the interview with Jordan Peterson that, you know, he was talking about how much he puts in everything, and he also even went back and he was talking about when he started in Passion of the Christ as Jesus Christ. What a big deal! He's a very devout Christian, and could you imagine?
No,
and he got struck by lightning.
I heard when he was filming it.
He mentioned, I heard that too. I thought it was BS. You know, I heard it in passing years ago. No, he talked about it. Yes, he even got.
I think it was when he was in the cross scene.
Was it really?
That's what I thought I heard.
I really should look that up again. But he said, so he's talking about how much preparation he did for this role. And he was just concerned, like, you know, how well did I nail it? He did a lot of research, talked to a lot of government agents. And
he totally nailed it.
Yeah, a lot of time with Tim. And he said that during the initial screening, when he was, they don't push this in front of your face. You can see that Caviezel's character, Ballard, is watching this child porn, and the look on his face and you saw the movie. They said they just really captured his eyes.
That's what it was.
And Ballard, Ballard leaned into Jim when they're watching the initial viewing. He leaned in to Jim and started just weeping, just really crying. Like he's like, "You got it, you nailed it."
You made a point here that I just want to echo, which is after seeing the movie, one of the concerns I had when the movie started was that I was going to see something that I really didn't want to see.
This is why I'm stressing
kind of fearful of that.
Sure.
And they did such a professional job of not showing the heinous thing.
Thank God.
But you knew what the heinous thing was.
Yeah.
They did a very professional job of conveying what the truth of it is without destroying you psychologically. But I have to say this, that I actually saw the movie 2 nights ago. I have not been able to stop thinking about this since I saw that movie. It's almost haunted me. It's caused me to do all kinds of research as well to see who all is involved. And one of the first major organizations that I saw that is one of the culprits of this is actually the United Nations and the World Health Organization, which I started to do research. They have tons of different legal situations where they are implicated in child sex trafficking.
Well, can you explain that a little more?
I can go to different articles. Here's one from the AP right now, and I'll just give you a little thumbnail of this one. But AP exclusive: UN child sex ring left victims, but no arrests. This is from April 12th, 2017 at Port-au-Prince, Haiti. In the ruins of a tropical hideaway where jet setters once sipped rum and Caribbean sun, the abandoned children tried to make a life for themselves. They begged and scavenged for food, but they never could scrape enough together to beat back the hunger until the UN peacekeepers moved in a few blocks away. The men who came from a faraway place and spoke a strange language offered the Haitian children cookies and other snacks. Sometimes they gave them a few dollars, but the price was high. The Sri Lankan peacekeepers wanted sex from girls and boys as young as 12. I did not even have breasts, said a girl known as victim number 1. She told UN investigators that over the next 3 years, from ages 12 to 15, she had sex with nearly 50 peacekeepers, including the commandant, who gave her 75 cents. And it goes on. That's just one article. There are a whole... When you start looking into this, it's wherever the UN goes, sex trafficking and rape happens. The World Health Organization, as well as non-government organization personnel, have been implicated. A 9-year period in Africa turned out 58,000 raped women and girls. 75% of those raped women and girls were raped by UN peacekeepers. And this went through the whole system, and not one of them were implicated in any crimes, even though they admitted to doing it.
Wow. So that's mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. And so then when you start to take a look at, okay, these are worldwide organizations that are involved in the very top levels that we are very much involved in. And these are the same people that have our media networks under their control. And so when you start to wonder, I talked to one person who said, I had no idea this was going on. Well, there's a reason you don't know. And that's the scary part, is that this thing is happening at the upper echelons. And the people, and there's a reason why we don't know the address book of Jeffrey Epstein right now.
Oh, for sure.
And when you take a look at who the people were that went over to that island, you can see that they're the most powerful people in the world are involved in this. And so, and that since they have control of media, they can be easily kept from you. But I would recommend to our audience right now 2 things. One, get tickets to see that movie.
Yeah.
Not only is it a very entertaining movie and mind-blowing, you'll get the truth and you'll be able to parlay that truth to other people that absolutely need to know. There was a line in the movie, and it was this, Barry. Jim Caviezel was trying to get a financier to help him to buy this island so that they could trap these people, and he didn't want to do it. And finally, Jim, the character, says to him, look, this is going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. It's the fastest growing illegal business in the world right now, until finally this impacts you. And that's the thing to the audience. This isn't something that's just happening out there. It's something that has the potential to affect you or a family member. And I think about that father that said to the main character, how could you rest if one of your children's bed is empty? Well, what if you're a grandparent? How could you rest knowing your grandchild is out there? God knows what could be happening. How could you rest? People need to know about this so that they can protect their children. And we need to unite and go to our government and demand that they change what they're doing to protect our most innocent of human capital, which is our children. These are our future, and they're innocent.
They're innocent. That's the hard part.
If anybody deserves help, it's them. And we need to change how. I mean, look, Homeland Security, they weren't interested in going after the kids. They just wanted to take the perpetrators out. Well, that's good, but that's not solving the problem. More perpetrators are raised up every day. The problem is we got kids in slavery today, and we need to free them. We need to free them.
Right. And there's a big problem here too with how, when things get big and people get powerful, they get together and they try to gain more power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we always think it's everybody else but me. Tell you what, it seems to me the human condition is, if you are put in a place of substantial amount of power, you're going to get corrupted. And that's what's going on. I just finished a podcast, a two-parter on a podcast called Conspiracy Theories. And they take the most famous conspiracy theories throughout time, whether it's the JFK assassination or UFOs or whatever. This one was on Bohemian Grove. It's technically called the Bohemian Group, but
I just heard about them recently, Barry.
They meet at Bohemian Grove. Oh my God, it's so it's such a good one. But it really depicts. Now that started in 1879. We're talking right there on the brink of the Wild West days, which was like the 20-year period, 1880 to the turn of the century. But this is in California, and there's the Bohemians, just like we had in the 60s, and the hipsters, just like we have today. They had them back then too. And these hipsters, the Bohemians, were the artists of various kinds of art that like to party really hard and be anti-society. There's the word. I sound like Biden now.
Counterculture.
Counterculture is a great one. Same thing. And the rich people were kind of like, they're kind of jealous. They look like they're having so much fun, and they're being kind of exclusive. They have this exclusive party that they started. And so, the Bohemians were like, sure, we'll use your money and we'll build the biggest parties ever. So they got together. Well, very quickly, the Bohemian thing kind of went to the wayside, and the oligarchs, the rich people, just bonded there and just to discuss how they can seize more power. And here's the weird thing, is that it's all Republican men, all Republican white men, and which I didn't know that. But they would meet, and the most influential people in the world would speak. So they'd meet for 2 weeks every July coming up, and every day there would be a speaker at the lake underneath of the 30-foot owl statue. Anyways, there's been so many people that not so many, but there've been several people that have infiltrated this group over time and have relayed just how creepy the stuff is that they're doing there, including Richard Nixon, who is like,
I was just looking that up. Bohemian Club Nixon.
I am never going back there. It's too effing gay for me. That's literally what he said. And oh God, but there's a lot of big names involved with that. We have seen
here's a few.
Well,
Clint Eastwood,
yes,
Henry Kissinger, Walter Cronkite, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Charles Schwab.
Yep.
Mark Twain.
yeah. Rockefeller.
No way. He's in every one of these things. Rockefeller's involved in. I mean, he's woo.
But my point is, when people get really powerful and they team up, it gets weird. It always gets weird. And so there's been, speculation of human sacrifices and stuff, but it's literally speculation. This show, Conspiracy Theories, this podcast, they do a really good job of laying out the stuff we know versus the stuff that is speculated, and letting you know that, not every weird thing that's said about it is necessarily true. But it is definitely a place where people are trying to garner more and more power and influence elections for sure. They say the one thing that you can see a pattern of are Republican men that before they are presidents, they become part, or at least a guest of this group. So it looks like somehow or another, they're kind of getting anointed via this one particular group. But I also think that there's many of these groups that are trying to rule the world.
There are. Yeah, there definitely are. And we see, and we talk about them all the time.
Yes.
There's something in the Bible that really rings true to me that says, because they knew God, they did not, because although they knew God, because everybody knows it says in here, everybody knows God exists, but some people deny it. They did not glorify him as God, nor were they thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. Therefore, God gave them up to uncleanness and the lusts of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of God for the lie, and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. This is what I see happening, is these people, the absolute power corrupts absolutely, is that they've decided to be God in their own lives. And when that happens, God says, okay, I guess my job is done here. You're on your own. And the thing that happens is all of this perverted kind of stuff. And this is exactly what we're seeing. And in fact, we've seen this throughout all of history. These are the people that are wearing the silk robe and looking like the most prominent people, but because of this absolute power, they've become God of their own lives, and therefore these things start to manifest. We see it every time.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing here.
It becomes self-indulgence.
It is. And it's just, like you said, absolute power corrupts absolutely, but it doesn't go to the good part. It goes to the bad part every single time. And I just think that's what we're seeing. We have so much unaccountability right now.
Yeah, we do.
Government and really the areas that are prominent. There's no accountability. They're telling us how to think. We're not they're not listening to us whatsoever.
They're just trying to keep us divided so that we can't tell them.
That's exactly right, Barry. And these are the fruits that we see.
You're exactly right. I think that you can boil this all down to, this has been coming together for me over the last couple of years here, is that the bigger things get, the worse they're going to get. And that's what I mean, big government, big businesses, and these kind of the rich getting richer, and they're just fleecing the middle class. They're getting together and figuring out how else can we, in that thing about the Bohemian Grove, they're talking about, they move the market, and whether it goes up or down, they profit from it because they're controlling it. And who are they taking that money from? From us. The pharmaceutical industry is, everybody is. And so when something gets big enough, like our government, you have this diffusion of responsibility. to your point, you said there's no accountability today. That's exactly right. There's not. And they're supposed to be accountable to us, the individual, but they're bigger. They know that, and they're just trying to get bigger. And all of these individuals that could, maybe a lot of them go into politics with all the noble ideas and everything, but you can convince yourself that you're doing good, even when you're voting for something that you don't believe in, that is maybe giving yet another tax loophole to the rich or something. And you vote for it. Well, it's because they're going to, these people are going to vote for my thing next time. And I'm only one vote out of 1,000, all of that. It's too big. When things get too big, they get corrupt. It's a diffusion of responsibility.
And you see this in our legislature all the time, where it's like one party's trying to do something noble, but then the other party adds all these riders on top of it. Yeah. So, okay, so we have this bill to save the kids, but you got to stab your mom in the meantime in order to get this, or something. Yeah, that's extreme, but I'm just saying that that's what they do, so that when you, just like you said, you voted for it, your conscience is clean, but then there's all this other stuff that you had to compromise with that's filthy and disgusting. Yeah, and it happens all the time. That's how things are working these days.
It's how things are working, and like I said, we all know this. At least most of us know this, is they just want to keep us divided. You're a racist. And now they can do whatever they want. They just, this trans person is woman of the year. And now let's go past that bill. And, and it's just continuous like that. It's sickening. You could find a white powdery substance in the library in the White House, and all you got to do is throw out some good juicy stuff like this, and nobody's talking about it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Not that would ever happen, but something like that could happen, facetiously.
Right. So, right. It could happen.
And the president's son could be like the only one on the premises in that area. And,
imagine if that happened.
Imagine if that happened. Could you?
I love it, man.
Well, hey, what else has been going on?
Yeah.
What do you got? You got anything over there? I said everything that I had planned to say.
I have to. I kind of feel like we should leave it at this, because we just covered a really heavy topic right here, and it's kind of hard to flip into, hey, let's joke around now, because I kind of feel like throwing up a little bit.
But I wanted to do that to take the edge off of it, because it was so serious, and I'd rather leave people with a little bit of a smile.
I know, and I just believe that much like slavery of the past here in this country, the good news is that we know that horrible institution existed until somebody told the story. Hey, this was a cool part of the movie, by the way. It was Jim Caviezel at the very end. He's talking, and he's saying that the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. That was a quote from Steve Jobs. And then he goes on to say Abraham Lincoln credited Harry Beecher Stowe for I brought this up at the beginning, but for bringing awareness to people so that they would have the inspiration to fight against slavery. Yeah. That book was fantastic, by the way. I encourage everyone to read Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. I have said this on the show before, that I always wondered, well, who is this Uncle Tom guy that they use as a disparaging term for Black people that are trying to act white? But if you read that book, you'll find out that that's not who Uncle Tom was. This was a very powerful man of principles, godly principles. And he had the self-sacrificing kind of love in his heart that he displayed for everyone. And when people saw that these people are people like them, they fought for that. And this is the story that's being told right now about the slavery in our day. The good news is that this is a good story. It's riveting. People, when they see this, their hearts will change. And when people en masse, their hearts are changed, we can move the world. We've done it before. Right. This is not a hopeless situation. Awareness is the first step. to eliminating this. We've seen it before with slavery here in the United States. We'll see it again. It will come to pass that we're going to put the kibosh on probably most of this. I mean, there's always going to be evil lurking, but we are going to do this. And I believe it with all of my heart. It's one of those things, Barry, where it's like, when you know that you know that you know something, I know something here. People are going to stand up and fight for their kids. I just want to bring up, we've seen the FBI fight against parents that were fighting against their kids or fighting for their kids. That's a big red flag. See, we have to look at that and say, America, no more. We, the people, are going to stand up because you derive your just powers from the consent of the governed. We're the governed, and it's our consent. And we're not going to put up with this anymore. And we will put a stop to this, because exposure of evil is how you do it. And that's what we're doing today. And it's going out there, man.
Yeah. And you got to just recognize the good versus evil part. What I want to say about that is there's such a movement today to talk about reparations and people were enslaved and the U.S. is so horrible. Instead of saying the U.S. put an end to slavery. I mean, the U.S. united and defeated slavery.
Amen.
And they did in England too. I think it was 20 years prior.
They did.
Yeah. So understand that. And so we need to do it again. So if you're focused on something that happened a few hundred years ago and debating about that, understand we put an end to that. How about let's look at what's going on today? More people are enslaved today than they ever were in history right now. And it's horrific.
Powerful point you're making. That's a powerful point right there. Take that energy that you have regarding something that happened 170 years ago.
That's over.
And apply it to this.
That's still current.
And let's lock arms and let's take this evil down to the ground. That's what needs to happen, because the life you protect could be your own, or it could be your child, or it could be your friend's child, or your friend, or your grandchild. But this is going to come home if we don't do anything about it right now.
Right. I mean, it's going to be like COVID or something. It was at first, it was like, for the longest time, I was like, well, I never even heard of somebody that's gotten COVID. Next thing you know, everyone's had it, All right. That's a little too loosey-goosey for the subject matter, but I'm saying that this is so prolific that you're going to be like one person removed from being affected by it.
That's right. That's right. And I do know that our God loves children. He says, suffer the children to come to me. And so we know that God loves children. And as it says in the movie, our children are not for sale anymore.
Did I make the point? I think I did. So stop me if I'm repeating myself. But I said to Lisa, after I listened to that podcast, that, I've always believed in a higher power. Not exactly sure what that looks like, but I definitely believe in that. But I never really believed in Satan or just pure evil. I always thought, this is degrees of mental illness. But after listening to that podcast, I said to Lisa, I think I do believe in this evil, Satan.
Evil personified.
Because people are so manipulated with this. Just the extent of that this god-awful thing has gone. And I don't know how people can live with themselves if they're even thinking in these ways.
It says in the Bible that our fight is not against flesh and blood or people, but against powers and principalities in high places. The Bible's making a point that, just like I read to you earlier, that was out of the book of Romans, that you decide that you're smarter than everyone else, including God, and you become the God of your own life. Well, that's when you open up the door to be influenced by Satan. And so that's when Satan starts to speak into your mind, all of these things. Those are the powers and principalities in high places. So to your point, Barry, no, they're not using their own brains. They're being influenced They're and by the way, these demonic powers have the ability to put thoughts into your mind. And so not that they're not responsible for what they do. That's not true, because legally they are responsible, but they seem to be almost on automatic pilot. And just, one of the things we've talked about on the show is your emotions versus your logic. And there's a higher level of thinking, which is engaging the logical realm of your brain above and beyond your reflex and emotion. But the devil operates on reflex and emotion. That's where his domain is. He can't reach you when you're in the logical realm. And so what we see happening here is this, that these people are literally being triggered into these things. And trigger is one of those things that we can relate to, because people are using this word a lot, but triggering only happens at the emotional level. It does not happen at the intellectual level, the higher level of thinking. So what's the point of all of that?
Well, I think the point is that I'm getting out of it is maybe we need to learn, maybe we need to recognize that we have to be masters of our feelings, of our emotions.
True. That is a big statement and so true. And we've given techniques on how to do that on this particular show. Yeah. So we find ourselves being triggered, and there are telltale signs of when we're being triggered. Our heart rate comes up, our breathing starts to happen, we start to sweat a little bit, and maybe your mouth becomes dry. That should be it's almost like a dashboard indicator, like check engine.
Yep.
This is when you feel those feelings, it's like, that's when you take that sip of water and you think about, what am I feeling right now? Yeah. And then you take a deep breath. And as you're analyzing this, you're thinking about the outcome that you want. It's a beautiful way to
back
move
into that
from
parasympathetic,
from one level to the next level, and then
back to sanity. Yeah,
exactly. Because I know my own self that when I've operated at the emotional level, it's I say things I regret, I do things I regret, but
there's been such a movement for so long now to what do you want to say? But
your feelings are everything.
To coddle everybody's feelings, and Ben Shapiro for years has made a career out of saying, this doesn't care about your feelings, or that doesn't care about your feelings. It's right or it's wrong.
There it is.
It is.
And your feelings can be very, very deceiving.
They can.
I mean, you're like a candle in the wind when it comes to your emotions. So
some of us worse than others. I said to Lisa very recently, I wish, and you've talked very eloquently about this, but I said to her, I wish I didn't feel so damn much. I wish I could control it more. Too often I just feel really bad, and it could be sadness, it could be anxiety, it could be any number of things. And I always am jealous of the people that seem like they don't have much of a conscience, and they're okay people. I don't mean bad people, but they just don't seem like they feel guilt and shame and all this other stuff too much, and they can just plow through. I think that's
awesome. So interesting what you're saying. I love what you're saying, because I agree. And when we going back to the Bible again, Adam and Eve, when they bit into that apple, then they were given a conscience. So humanity got a conscience at that point, but they didn't need a conscience before that, because they never had the desire to sin. But once they fell into sin, God gave them over to a conscience to protect them. But what does your conscience do? It convicts you of guilt all the time. It never says you're a great guy. It basically tells you what a terrible person you are. And when you have God in your life, it says in the Bible that there should never, as a result, this conviction of sin should disappear from your life, because you're not under sin any longer. And so your conscience stops bugging you so much, right? Because you're naturally wanting to do the right thing. It's an interesting thing you're saying, because it's a spiritual concept. What you're talking about right here is that there are people that are just naturally, they have good intentions, and their conscience doesn't bother them and make them feel bad all the time.
This
is where we all want to be.
Yeah, for sure. Abraham Maslow had the theory of self-actualization.
Yes, a hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah. You know that no one he never put that pyramid to it. We're
Oh,
always
he
used to see.
didn't. Huh.
No, but he did talk in the realms of, first you need food, water, and oxygen. Those needs met. And if those are met, now you can go to upper levels and
It's
reach
your
a some.
physical needs first, then your emotional, and then
Yeah,
you get to the
yeah,
intellectual level, which it's the same formula we've been talking about.
yeah.
Also, Maslow said that the only self-actualized person in the world was Jesus Christ. I thought
Did he
that was.
say that? I thought Abraham Lincoln was to be as well.
And if you read about Abraham Lincoln, you'll find out that he was not self-actualized. He had all the same kind of crap you and I have.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of stuff going on, boy.
Uh,
But I don't think he made it to that particular level. I don't think
mm,
any human being can make it to that particular level of self-actualization. We always are going to have doubts and fears in our minds. We're always going to be in that. And the toughest people. I mean, you look at Abraham Lincoln sweating it during
yeah.
the Civil War, staying up all night, worrying and everything. Worried people don't. I mean, when you're self-actualized, you don't even need to worry.
Wow, that's very interesting. And I think you probably need a very strong faith to get there.
It's the only way,
I
and
think so.
it's the only way to get close in this body. But we're still in these bodies of death, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
bodies can get as good as they can get, but they can never be perfected. And just like our minds can never be perfected either.
Mm.
We're always gonna have some kind of flaw we're gonna have to deal
Yeah.
with here in this world.
Did you ever see that movie, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Killer?
No, but I saw the previews and that looked really funny.
It
I
was
want to
pretty
see
good.
that one.
It was pretty good.
That looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
A vampire. I think I love anything with Abraham Lincoln in it, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you
Especially
said that's
funny stuff. I've got a T-shirt with Abraham Lincoln playing this guitar, and he's got how Pete Townsend would jump up in the air and do
yeah,
the splits.
right.
It's Abraham Lincoln doing that with his top hat on. That's one of my favorites.
Well, okay. Have you watched anything good lately?
Well,
Obviously we talked about one. But...
I've been watching that show Succession. And
oh yeah, I got through about 3 seasons.
Yeah, I think I'm close to the end of the 3rd season, actually. And I mean, I gotta say, it's not the most uplifting thing, but it is very interesting. Kind of a human nature.
Yeah, it's pretty good in that regard.
And we've talked about absolute power corrupts absolutely,
yes.
and these people are corrupted absolutely.
They're a mess.
They are a big hot mess, man. But for some reason, you find ways to relate to them, and you understand, you start to understand. And this thing that I read in Romans about, you think that you're so smart that you start, all these corrupt things start to happen. That's what's happening with this poor family.
Oh,
but it is pretty interesting. I think that's the only thing I've been watching lately. I can't think of anything that's come out that I'm looking at. But I'll tell you what, going to that movie the other night was the first time I've been to a movie theater in probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
I have no desire to go to a movie theater.
Me neither. But here's something interesting. I went because they had the pre-screening of the movie on Monday, and I had the day off on Monday, and I went to it, and I found it very interesting because when the movie was supposed to come on, the employee of the movie theater came in and told us that they had not sent the key to the movie. And so we couldn't watch the movie. They gave us our money back.
Who's ever heard of this before?
I've never, and it was really interesting because, like I said, it's Angel Studios. It's a Christian studio.
Oh,
and they've done some really great stuff, amazing stuff. And they are the people that have produced this movie actually have a vendetta against Disney because Disney held on to this movie for 5 years, even though it was screen tested through the roof. They wouldn't put it out there.
Disney went dark.
Yeah, they sure did. And so the interesting thing is when this young man came in to announce that the movie wasn't going to come on, he said, the studio, it's not Disney. He purposely compared that studio to Disney. Well, I don't know if he knew that there was a battle between Disney and Angel, but it was interesting that he came out that all happened and we all had to just go home after that.
Yeah, that's really disappointing.
Hey, that's never happened. I mean, I haven't gone to
I've never heard
in a long
that.
time. Me neither. You go to if we don't have the key. What do they? I didn't know that you got to have a key to open up the film. That's weird.
Right.
But anyway, but then when we did go see the movie, it was in one of those movie theaters where it's got those really comfortable seats where you could press the button and you're all laid back and everything.
Oh.
And then they come and they serve you food and stuff. You got a little table in front of you. That's different. I mean, I remember going to the movies and you walk down that real tight aisle and you make everybody mad that has to stand up.
Yes.
And somebody spilled like 10 sodas on the floor, so your tennis shoes are all sticking to the floor.
Yes. Yeah, who doesn't know that feeling? It is gross.
So gross.
And I never used to think about that until COVID. And COVID got us thinking about germs. Now I actually think about those dirty chairs that 8 billion people have been sitting in and never been cleaned.
I couldn't help thinking about that myself as I was sitting there, because even though those chairs were real comfortable, part of why they were comfortable was because they were so worn out from a million people sitting on them. And then those cup holes, where you could put your drink. I'm like, God knows what's inside of there. I don't even want to touch that area right there. And of course, if you order something, it was like $50. So you got to sneak. If you're going to bring something in, you got to sneak it in there.
For sure.
But still a very interesting experience going to the movies for the first time in a long time.
Have you seen?
It was silent in there, boy. Nobody said a word except for me. I said, wow. And my wife said, right away.
Totally off base, but I just wanted to pull up the Daily Mail to see what kind of fodder is out there right now. Have you seen these really disturbing videos about Britney Spears lately?
No.
She looks like she's totally lost her mind. In the Daily Mail, like, they're great in the fact that they'll put news out there that you won't see on mainstream media like right away.
Right, you're right about that. Yep,
because they have no scruples about.
They're all over it. Yeah,
they're all over everything, but they're also all over exploiting Britney Spears, and she'll go on. I don't know if it's TikTok or whatever, and do these weird dances. And
I've seen those when she first got her. Oh God, whatever she's
conservative.
Yeah. Then immediately she's on TikTok with her shirt off, and I'm like, oh no, this is why she was under this.
Right. And it's clear. I mean, and whoever that grifter is, her latest husband is just like enabling all this for sure. I don't know him. I don't
feel bad for her.
I shouldn't say. I do too. Well, the latest thing is, I think it was today, maybe it was yesterday. It was yesterday. She was trying to catch up to this NBA star, Victor Wembanyama, and she's using this British accent, going, hey sir, something like that. And she goes to reach for him or something, and the bodyguard hits her in the face. He doesn't even turn around, but he just like blocks her arm or something. It looks like he hits her in her face. And then she says something about the F word in America and all that in this fake British accent. It's like, man, she needs help. She needs
so too. I mean, and you look at again.
We don't know what to do with mental. We don't know what to do with mental illness in this country.
But look at all these kids that actually got involved in the Mickey Mouse Club. I think she was one of them. And these young people, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, and all these young people. What was the Home Alone guy? They get screwed up by the fame. And of course, we've also heard about these kids have been sexually harassed. Some of them, several we just mentioned.
Corey Feldman. I think it's Feldman. Yeah,
Haim and Feldman, both of them. And Corey Haim committed suicide. So I mean, gosh, it seems like let's take the sex part out of it, but it just seems like that much fame as a little kid it's going to screw up these people. They can never be normal human beings.
And I think the problem with that is that they're being controlled by people with a lot of power. Once again, we're back to that power, that Hollywood power. They're all so corrupt. Once they get that power, they're manipulators from there. And they're always going to ask you for sex at some point. I don't know what else to say about that.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
I hate that we just came back to that, and then we can never end the show now.
I know. I was trying to get on a light moment, and
I know. I'm sorry,
but it all comes back.
I was trying to be uplifting, and it does actually. But I'm tapped though. I think we should wrap.
Okay, here's a headline for you. Karine Jean-Pierre snaps at incredibly irresponsible quotes press for asking if West Wing cocaine belonged to Hunter or the Biden family. She still refuses, to rule it out. That girl, she's not competent enough for the job, but she has the most impossible job.
Oh, well, she herself has told us that she's a historical figure. So,
right.
Yeah. So there it is right there. But did you see the decision that was made on July 4th by a federal judge to cause the White House and the federal staff to not be able to communicate with social media companies?
Oh, you mentioned that. We talked a little bit about that. I remember that when I read about it, it sounded vague. It did
let me see clear. If I can find this, because this is some pretty.
It would be very important because
it's pretty.
All right. Here's the thing. We know that the FBI and CIA and I think the CSA went to media and social media and told them to not run stuff about the Hunter Biden laptop stuff. This was election interference. Mm-hmm. Clearly election interference. No one ever, have I heard, talk about trying to hold somebody accountable for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
So I just don't understand that. So anyways, to your point right there, if this ruling is truly that there can be no manipulation in the press or social media, it would be huge. But I just remember when I was skimming over it at warp speed, it sounded ambiguous.
Well, that's a problem, right? When we have these ambiguous types of things, but I got to tell you, what I saw wasn't very ambiguous whatsoever. Okay. That's why I want to find this. I'm almost there. Let's see if this is it here. I hope so. Let's see. White House silence off. Oh my gosh, I hate when I can't find something when I
know, and it's an important
it's right
one.
there. Yeah. But I was just looking at this. The problem here is that I didn't save it someplace.
Well, let me tell you this one, just looking at this little headline. Biden claims it was a difficult decision to send cluster munitions to Ukraine, but claims Zelensky needs them as he's running out of ammunition. Okay, now that is an act of war, and that's what he said months ago, that he would never send these cluster munitions over there. He just keeps crossing one line after another. And it's amazing that everybody thought that Trump was going to get us in World War III. And Biden just keeps crossing the line.
I know. It's on a daily basis. It's really amazing when you take a look at the shenanigans. Like every day. It's something else every day. I can't find the article, right. but the bottom line is that the judge said that this interference, it really goes back to the Twitter files.
Yeah.
And everything we found out about the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Justice, all these people that were demanding changes and demanding people taken off. This is what he said, is that that's a violation of the First Amendment. Because they're using these companies as a proxy to withhold information. And so that violates their freedom of speech. In fact, what he said is it's one of the worst violations of freedom of speech in American history. And he even said, he conjured up 1984 and said that the way that the federal government was acting with information was Orwellian, and that's in the decision as well. So right now, none of the White House can't coordinate with social media, nor can any of their proxies in the federal government until further notice. And of course, we know that the judge is right about this, and that's exactly what they did. And that hopefully, but here's my thing, is that's a federal judge, and we have seen some crazy stuff happening in the court system lately, where it's just corruption upon corruption, manipulation upon manipulation, and these judges seem to have been completely bought off. So we'll have to see what happens with this one.
Right. How about with that, we wind this up, bro?
Let's do it, man. Yeah, it's time for the weekend.
It's a beautiful Friday.
Yes,
beautiful Friday evening here. Got to take that doggy for a walk. He's been very patient. He's been very good.
Seeing him back there, awfully quiet. Yeah. Good for him. He's hiding now.
Oh, of course. He's at my feet. Yeah, he's such a good dog. All right, buddy.
All right.
I really appreciate
good show. You got it.
This is an important show. And guys,
my pleasure.
I hope that you spread the word about the sounds of freedom. It's so important. We gotta put a dent in this.
You're right.
Put an end to it. All right, brother. Have a good weekend. Love you, buddy.
You too. Love you too.